Gradualist war between the Orthodox and demonic cult had happened. The Great War between the demons and the Orthodox. No one could have predicted that the battle would continue for 13 years in an endless hell filled with tears, bloodshed, and whatnot. However, the long war was stopped abruptly with the unexpected truce. Even 20 years later, the details of the truce remain a mystery. Both factions had agreed to remain silent for the time. But as time passed, new forces began to emerge within the Jianghu. On the other hand, some families had weakened because of the war. We see a young woman, ablaze, slicing and dicing through the air, saying, "But why the hell can't I break through the 7-star realm?" We see her, Guo Shi, the second daughter of the righteous sword sect leader, Lady Zhang. "I have to master the red sword art of death as soon as possible to restore my family," she thinks. This sword art has been passed down through generations of her sect. As she sheathes her blade, she says, "Strangely enough, my skills aren't improving." Someone calls her name, and we see her say, "Sister and brother-in-law." This is her elder sister and her husband. "What brought you here all of a sudden during my training?" she asks. Her sister says, "Someone from the Xiangshin clan has arrived." Her sister continues, "Swordman Jiang wants to compete with you in the year's Dragon and Phoenix tournament." She's surprised. What? Among the martial artists of the Central Plain? There are two tournaments that stand out the most. The Heavenly Dragon Tournament, where sex honors and even lives are on the line, and the Dragon and Phoenix Tournament, an event for the young rising talent. This year, both tournaments are being held here in her city, Wuhan. Having to pair up like children is already bad enough, but pairing up with that perverted guy, Jiang? No way. "I can't do this," she says. "Why the hell do I have to get involved with someone like him?" She grunted out to her sister as her sister says, "Don't get worked up and listen to what I have to say first." We see her husband trying to resolve the argument first, saying, "Stop arguing." We see her sister saying, "You always said you would bring honor to the clan's name. If you get selected for the Dragon and Phoenix tournaments, you will gain great prestige," she says with a dubious look. However, if you go against the Xiangshin clan, her speech is cut short as her sister runs from beside her at full speed, saying, "I told you I am absolutely not going. Why don't you just lie about your age and enter, sister?" We see. After she is gone, her older sister sighs. What a pain, as her husband comforts her, saying, "My sister-in-law really does have a temper, just like you," he says, caressing her. That we see at the market. People are roaming everywhere as new goods have arrived. "We are selling Westlake Long Jiang tea today for less than half the price. Did you hear the news? The Grandmaster lost another finger. This time, it looks like someone punished him on our behalf." We see two men conversing as the girl with her sword looks disappointed. She says with her eyes closed, "But what if the Xiangshan clan holds a grudge and retaliates against our clan? Can they do whatever they want just because they are a powerful clan?" As we see, it looked like a scuffle is commencing near a shop. The man says, "This isn't what we agreed on." "What? Are you insane? Do you really want to die so badly?" Another man replies, "Deceiving each other, hurting each other." As we see another group of people, one says, "If his lordship could just lend his strength for this matter." Don't worry about that. Just make sure you handle what we talked about last time. Scheming and dirty tricks are running rampant. We see someone's money pouch has been stolen, as we see all of the people in the market are just fighting with each other. She stands, saying, "Is this the Jianghu I longed for and dreamed of?" As we see, she hears something and takes a look. It's the leader of the Morim Alliance. To think that the dream of unifying the demonic cult would end so fruitlessly. The heavenly demon has fallen. Everyone cheers him on. The 13-year-long war is finally coming to an end. Long live the leader. As we see, it is just a play happening. She thinks to herself, "This is nonsense." Even though this is a play, nothing has been revealed about how the Great War between the Orthodox faction and demon cult ended, right? We see someone coming behind her, saying, "I have similar thoughts." In her ear, the boy says, "The Heavenly Demon 9 Calamities demonic technique is also called the Invincible Demonic Art. In a one-on-one fight, no one can defeat him." He continues, "Moreover, the Great War between the Orthodox Alliance and the demon cult didn't end in such a trivial manner." We see the girl wondering what is up with this strange-looking guy. We see the boy saying, "I am thirsty. Let's grab a drink together. Show me the way. This is my first time in this city." We see her thinking to herself, what kind of trick is he pulling with his innocent face? She says to him, if you were a martial artist, you shouldn't act like a worthless bum. I have something else to take care of, so I will be leaving. We see him saying, do you really think this Jianghu has such great value? As she turns to him, saying, what do you mean by that? He replies, ideals and chivalry have long been abandoned. This Jianghu is nothing but a facade. Isn't that pathetic? As both of their eyes meet, we see her holding her sword tight, saying, let's not get worked up. As we see her releasing her grip on the sword, both of them stand there. We see her saying, but you are still living in this Jianghu, right? As we see her turn her legs and move forward. This Jianghu is not bad enough to deserve such disrespect, she says. As we see the main character's eyes light up, we see him smiling, turning his face around as we hear, it's a sword ornament made of night light stone. I've never seen this many people in Wuhan before. What kind of tournament is being held this time? Front row seats to the Heavenly Demon Tournament are only 10 niang at the inn of the city. We see people eating, drinking, families, and servants running to serve. I heard the Dragon and Phoenix Tournament is going to be extraordinary. The top candidate in this championship this time is surely swordsman of the Book Xian family. You can't underestimate swordsmen of the Nomic sect either. As we see the girl entering the inn, everyone is shocked to see her. She says, is it because of the tournament? There are so many people. As we see the server, he says, aren't you young lady Zhang of the Righteous Sword sect? What brings you here alone? Oh, I just wanted to have a light drink, she says. Oh dear, what should I do right now? The only empty seats are in the special room, he says. For now, please come this way, Lady Zhang. We are the best in the city, so I will give you a bit of a discount. Everyone is looking at her, seeing her beauty as we see her going up the stairs. We see her thinking to herself, who on earth spread such rumors about me? Looking a bit anxious and angry. I don't normally visit inns alone. Please sit wherever you are comfortable, he says. As he opens the door, she sees the strange guy from the Xiang Jian clan earlier. Oh, we meet again, the main character says. If I had known that we would run into each other like this, I would have come with you. We see her saying, my luck is really strange today. As we see the main character picking out a chicken leg, talking about the tournament, he asks, do you know how to register as a participant? What's the deadline? As we see the gradual meals ordered on the table, she wonders, has he been starving all day? You are not serious thinking about participating, are you? He says. Of course. Pretty girls will gather there in droves, right? I have a face that girls tend to like quite a bit. I've been traveling since I was young, and everywhere I've been, girls have always chased after me. We see her drinking and saying, unbelievable. Moreover, has he always been this kind of person? We see him saying, the great war between the Orthodox Alliance and demonic cult didn't end in such a trivial manner. He is acting completely different from how he was earlier. We see him saying, and then I realized who the most beautiful woman of the entire Jianghu is. We see him with a delighted face saying, it's my mother. We also see the dragon tattoo on his hand. We see someone saying, your mother? He says, what, are you disrespecting my mother because she's getting older? We see the girl flustered, saying, that's not it, as she thinks to herself, damn it, why am I flustered? What did I do wrong? He picks up a shrimp with his chopsticks, saying, well, that aside, I am feeling nervous about a big event coming up, so I am craving more food. Huh, is it because of the tournament? No, I am obviously going to win the tournament, he says. I'm aiming to conquer Hubei this year, he says. We see her thinking, he is going to conquer what? We see him saying, there's a lot to worry about, and even more to do. At times like this, I get really hungry, as he picks up the shrimp once again. Winning the tournament and conquering Hubei? Aren't you getting a bit boastful? We see her saying, I thought I heard a voice while passing by, as someone enters the door. Aren't you, young lady Zhang of the Righteous Sword sect? We see her look into his eyes, surprised and terrified. It's been a while, the man says. This is the successor of the Xiang Xin clan, the one who asked her to pair up for the tournament earlier. Let's have a drink here too. As we see there are people with him, we see the lady beside her saying, here? Well, should we? This is her sister. How have you been all this time? We see the man asking her. His habit of scanning my body is still as strong as ever. I want to hit him right now, but I guess I will hold back. He turns his gaze towards a man saying, By the way, Visser, the main character, is eating such a grand meal. He says, looks like there's someone else here, as he takes out something from his clothes. It's a gold coin, and he throws it towards the main character's food. There are multiple coins. He says it's for the bill. As the main character is still eating, he adds, if you are done eating, could you please leave your seat? He says with an ominous gaze. The main character looks at him with a more ominous gaze. We see as the main character sees the coins spread on his table, where all the food was sitting. He murmurs to himself and then says it out loud, I do not think that this amount of money is enough to pay for my meal. We see the surprised face of the guy who threw the money. He murmurs to himself, thinking, what is this guy talking about? The main character just pointed towards him with his chopsticks, saying, there is more food coming too. It's certainly not going to be enough with just 4 gold coins. We see the guy coming closer to the main character, and with a starry look, he says to the main character, you should go away while I am still being nice, or else. We see him laughing as he says this, murmuring to himself, thinking that the main character is scared. We see him saying, so, you are acting arrogant because you are a member of the Jianghu. As we see 2 of the main characters, one is short with a long blade, a heavy sword, and the second one looks more like a straight sword. Both of them are wrapped up to the brim with clothes. As the man takes a look at them, he says, looking towards the weapon, your weapons look enormous. Going towards them, we see him saying, shall I take a look? We see his chopsticks cut in half as, when he tried to lift up the heavy sword, it just stuck to the ground. We see him using all his force with one hand, as his back even twitched, his whole body shaking, but the sword didn't lift up. He thinks to himself, while in surprise, agony, and reality and disaster, what to this blade? Why is it so heavy? He thinks to himself, if I just turn back here. As we see everyone looking at him sternly, he wonders if he will be able to pick up the sword or not. There will be no humiliation worth more than this, as we see him trying to pick up the sword with more strength. Even if I use my internal energy, we see him using his internal energy, putting all of his power into it, and still, the sword did not even lift one bit. We see, after putting every ounce of his energy, the sword lifted up an inch in the air. As he turned towards the main character with a grunty look, like he had achieved something, he says, it's quite heavy, so you use this blade to train your muscles. We see his devastated look as his whole body is struck and sucked dry by the sword just to lift it 1 inch from the ground. In the broader picture, his sister is embarrassed. The girl thinks, what's happening? The main character is just enjoying his food. And the 2 servants think, I know, ha ha ha. So it's for practice, trying to give her sister some face and save them a bit of respect. As we see the main character now getting the sword from his hand, he picks it up with one hand and with ease, saying this isn't for training. We see the man's arm shaking as the main character did, and we see him saying, it's obviously a tool for training. We see the main character telling him, no, this is mine. We see the man saying, I am correct though, as the main character, with romance in his eyes, says, are you trying to joke around with me right now? The guy says, as he conjures some internal energy in his hands. We see someone saying abroad, stop. This is the girl from the sword sect, trying to mediate between them to solve this. As we see his sister and the 2 servants surprised by her actions, that she can have that much courage, we see the man surprised by her actions couldn't say anything, just sighs. He says, looking at me with such a hot gaze, are you interested in me? To the sword girl and the main character, who is just standing behind her with a heavy sword in his hand. We see him grabbing the sword girl's hand tightly as he says, well, we'll be joining the Dragon and the Phoenix tournament tomorrow anyway. Looking pervertedly towards her, as if doing it will be a good idea to get to know each other before that. He says this with an ominous and perverted look in his eyes. We see the girl shaking his hand and freeing herself from his grip, saying, I am sorry, but I have decided to participate with someone else. We see the man angry, saying, what? Why? As we see him clenching his fist in anger, he says, because using your family's power to impose things onto me is a pretty shameful act. We see the girl saying that out loud and boldly, without a seam of hesitation in her eyes. We see the man absolutely surprised and angry by her statement. So who are you participating with? He asks her. The girl hesitated about whose name she should say, but we see the main character saying, me. I'm going to participate with her, to the guy. Everyone is in broad spectrum as the guy sees the main character in his eyes. The main character just says, "She will be with me," holding his sword. The guy just said, "What?" As we see the temperature in the room getting a bit hot, we see his sister coming forward, saying, "Do you know who you were talking to?" Looking ominously, trying to impose her authority over the main character. The main character just says, "I do. Do you know who I am?" The main character retorts with a sense of monarchy in his tone. We see her saying, "Of course not." A person has two types of reactions when faced with the unknown. The main character says, looking at her, either they dismiss it or they fear it. But you are doing both. You are dismissing me because you don't know me while hoping that I will be afraid of your brother. Quite contradictory, don't you think? As we see her listening to his words carefully, we see a slight smile on her face as she pokes her chin, saying, "I am not sure." We see the man saying, "You certainly have some guts," as the main character says, "You see, I eat everything." They say people who eat well also speak well. We see the man getting angry by the main character's words as he grabs the table. The main character just warns him with his eyes, "Be careful not to spill the food." We see the man looking into the main character's eyes and abruptly stop whatever he was doing, fix his coat, and then says, "I will see you then," as he moves towards the door saying, "I will see you at the Dragon and the Phoenix tournament." Busy as every one of them left, in the broader picture, the servants are trying to calm him down, while his sister took a last look, and the main character also responded to her. She says, "I will see you again then." Because every one of them has left the premises, the girl thinks to herself, "I am in big trouble," while looking at the broken piece of table. She thinks to herself, considering his temper, he will be trying to go after the main character's life as well. The main character just says to her, "Well, now that we are at this point, let's just participate in the tournament together. I will revise my plans." He says, "Revise? But weren't you planning on participating from the beginning?" We see him saying, "Yeah, that's why I have to revise this." We see her saying, "Don't tell me you said you wanted to participate. Did you mean you were talking about the Heavenly Dragons tournament?" As we know, it is a tournament for the Masters, the Grandmasters, the Elder Sages. The main character says, "Of course I was going to participate in that." She says, "Why would you stay still with such amazing martial arts skills? Why didn't you give them a good beating?" We see him saying, "I don't fight little kids." The girl just got kissed, hearing this, saying excuses. We see his broader tone, with sternness in his eyes, saying, "At least those kids aren't the reason behind this, Jiang who rot." We see the girl saying, "If you say that with such a serious expression, it sounds like you are telling the truth." As we see outside, it seems like Lady Jiang likes young Master Jiang a lot. She was obviously trying to make you jealous. It looks like she doesn't plan on winning at all. To think she's rejecting young Master and entering that tournament with that laughable guy. You see the man hearing their brabble and thinking to himself, "Lovable guy? What a joke." That play earlier was certainly not one to be held lightly. It's my first time seeing him. Who exactly is he? And that arrogant Venge. How dare she reject me? I will make those who repent for what happened today pay to the bone. He says, as we see them walking away at the Righteous Source sect. We see her big sister saying, she rejected Jiang's offer in one go, outright. As all of them are sitting at the table, young Master Jiang is wreaking havoc at the brothel because he is upset. I was worried because the rumors about him weren't good anyway. This is the matriarch of the sect, but we don't know what he will do with that temper of his. As the matriarch says that. The girl is still young. We can't make her sacrifice herself for the family. It's not just about the family. He might hurt her too. My wife and children are suffering because of my shortcomings, the man thinks. He is the leader of the sect. Had I mastered the Crimson Death Sword art, our sword family would have been powerful too. Anyway, if it's true, this is a serious problem. We have to find her first. There is no need for that. It is true. We see the sword girl saying that, and the main character is behind him. You see everyone surprised by seeing her. We were worried, but who is that? They say after seeing the main character. The girl introduces herself as the one she is going to participate in the Dragon and the Phoenix tournament with. Everyone is shocked to the core, hearing this knowledge. As the main character moves forward, taking a stance with glory in his eyes, he says to them, "Nice to meet you. I am Jorg Legion." We see a majestic-looking flash shown on the screen as someone asks, "Is that porcelain from the Fujian region?" It looks like it's the main character who asks, How much did you pay for it? The sect leader replies, 150. What a pity, he says. If I were there, you would have only needed to pay 120, the main character says with a smiling twinkle in his eyes. We see the sect leader saying, right, as he gulps his saliva, saying to his daughter, you say you're going to enter the dragon and the phoenix tournament with the young master? As we see her sister thinking to herself, no matter how childish she is, how could she enter the dragon and phoenix tournament with such a strange guy? As we see the main character trying to rotate the porcelain on one of his fingers. Which sect do you belong to, young master? The sword girl's sister says. The main character has put the flask down, saying, I do not have one, but my parents sell fruit near the Yemen gate. He says that with a nonchalant expression. We see everyone shocked. Fruits? What? As their faces are surprised to hear what the main character just said. We see someone asking, what are those blades and swords you are carrying on your back? As the patriarch says, have you mastered both the arts of the sword and the blade? He thinks to himself that something a third-rate thug would do, even if it's just for aesthetics. You see the main character saying, yes, I have mastered both. Hearing this, the sect leader was in disaster, devastated by his fate. The main character says, I am quite exceptional in several areas. I come from a really strong bloodline. As we see both of their auras resonating, we see the man saying to him, don't tell me you learned martial arts from your parents who sell fruit? The main character said, yes, but do you not eat fruit? You ask. We see the man now turned into a rock, thinking about his daughter's safety. We see her sister going near her ear, saying, apologize to the young Master Jiang first thing in the morning. Well, as the night comes to light, we see her walking towards somewhere, thinking to herself, I brought him home for now in case the guy tried to do something to him, but what should I do? She thinks to herself as she sighs her breath. We see her distracted by something, looking towards the main character, who is standing right there. As she goes near the main character, she asks him, are you unable to sleep? The main character just replied, I can't sleep whenever I change locations. He says, moreover, there's something I must do tonight. He says something. She wonders. The main character, putting his hand forward, says in a tone of death, I'm going to send off a few guys today. He says so nonchalantly. We see her saying, why is he saying such a brutal joke so seriously? Why the fruit shop? Something he was joking about too. She thinks to herself, what kind of people are your parents? She asks, I heard that your mother is beautiful. What is your father like? The main character thinks to himself and says, my father tries to take care of everything while abiding by the rules. That's good, but he also imposes those rules on me, which is the problem. My parents are opposed to me entering the Jianghu, especially my father. The girl thinks to herself, indeed, his parents are not part of the Jianghu, so they must be worried about their son. But the main character just shocks her, saying, they say that they are worried about me destroying the entire place. I understand that too. Anyway, my parents are also worried about me. However, now that we are at this point, she thinks to herself as she remembers the table broken. We see the main character seeing that she is in agony, despair, and thoughtfulness, saying, by the way, I think I digested all my dinner already because it was only vegetables. We see her shocked expression as he says, will they serve meat dishes tomorrow? We see her saying, what? As the main character laughs. We see her saying, stop saying such foolish things. Leave this place after breakfast tomorrow, she says. The main character just looked at her, and she replied, what's wrong? The main character said, with a slight smile, are you worried about me? We see her saying, nonsense, as she is flustered. Hearing this, the main character looked at her while she was going away, saying, I am worried about the people you are going to meet in your future. As we see the image of the main character in the reflection of a pond, we see that ominous aura coming from a tower looms in the air. At the entrance, there are several people near the bonfire. One of them says, that young guy was trembling with a sword in his hand, trying to seek revenge for his father. How could I pretend not to notice it? I had no choice but to send him to his father's side, he says, with an ominous grin in his eyes. As we see everyone laughing, they do not look like good guys. On the contrary, we see the second guy saying, I suppose you just saved a poor kid from being an orphan. We see the main character arriving there, and all of them asking, who's that moron? Who are you, and why are you standing like this? Do you even know where you are? One of the guys asked, as the main character stood right in front of them. The main character says, "The Dark Heart, a place known as the Wandering Market. You know that and still came? The world has become kind. I see even little kids roaming around here." The Kaiser says to the others of his accomplices, "If little kid comes out of your mouth once again, you are going to die." The main character said, with an ominous look in his eyes, who was just looking for a reason to tear them to pieces. We see the leader of them with a sigh in his eyes as one of the guys gets up, saying, "I was going to go easy on you because you were a little kid," as he sheathes his sword. "But you have no manners." We see him lunging at the main character with the tip of his sword towards the main character's face. The main character ducked and easily avoided the sword from hitting him. We see a purple aura in the main character's hand, most probably a poison technique, as he touches the man's gut very softly. We see the man frozen in the air as his accomplices are watching him, saying, "That idiot! Are you going around and getting beaten up by kids now?" Everyone is laughing, saying, "Just give up everything and go help with your mother's business." They think that the man is still alive as the blade from his hands falls into the main characters. We see the carcass of the man on the ground. Everyone is now on their toes, seriously looking at the main character, shocked to the core. The main character says, "This time it's extremely important to me. This is the first day I take my steps forward towards the future, so I have no choice but to steel my resolve." He says we see them saying, "What?" as all of them are now on their guard, getting ready to attack the main character, saying, "What nonsense are you talking about?" We see the main character just lunge towards them with the sword of the man he just killed, and with a steely look in his eyes, he says, "That means even those whom I usually let go." As he slices through every one of them in one fell swoop, everyone spat out gallons worth of blood. The main character says, "I have to kill today," as we see blood on the floor and the main character with no expression. We see the room filled with countless bodies and the room decorated with bloodstains all over. As the main character opened the door to the main hall, it's a lavish room with many girls, a butler, and a fat man on the throne. As the main character looks at them, he sees the girls first, then the butler, and lastly, we see him going towards the fat man as he smells the ominous aura in the air. He says, "What a great atmosphere it is to be in." We see the fat man just trying to drink some soju as he bangs his fist against his throne, saying, "Are you here as a guest?" looking ominously towards the main character. "What are you here to buy that you are making such a fuss about?" We see this being say, "This is the gluttonous emperor, dark herbs leader." The main character says with no expression at all, "The most expensive person in this room." The man just sits in a stupor, and we see him laughing throughout the room. "How dare a chick who's wet behind the ears want to buy me," he says. "Look, would a young guy like you even have that much money?" The main character says, "How much is it?" The man just abruptly says very large numbers, saying 500,000. The main character nonchalantly just throws 500,000 on the ground, saying, "Here, is the deal sealed?" Then he says, while smiling, we see the man singing to himself, "I thought he was all talk, but he was that much of a rich guy." As we see him looking at the main character's back, thinking that it looks like there is more money in the bag, he says to the main character, "What if I increase the price?" The main character says, "I will be disappointed." The guy, with an idiotic smile, says to the main character, "What if I kill you and take that money?" The main character just says, "I will be even more disappointed," with a gelatinous tone in his voice. We see the man pointing at something and saying, then, as we see the girls behind him now coming towards the main character step by step, saying, "I will disappoint you a bit." As we see all of them so close that they have surrounded the main character, trying to put him in their seductive magic. We observe the absolutely malicious atmosphere of the room. Eyes everywhere selecting lips and an aura that is profound yet simplified. We see all of the girls who are covering and embracing the main character as the fat man sitting on the chair observes the main character surrounded by these seductive demonesses. We observe the fat man saying, "The moment you stepped into this room, you were caught."